Hey, how's it going? I hope that you're doing wonderful and that your day has been good, your week has been good, and everything that you're working on is a success. So just understanding that everything that you have in your life is something that is happening to your mind and happening through your mind, through your perception. So understanding perception is understanding how you think, the different matrices that you use. Matrices, metrics, right? Understanding that is like knowing certain things that you do, but sometimes are unaware of. Knowing the unconscious actions that you have, because the whole point of being conscious is to be awake, which is to be with the knowledge of what you're doing, is to know the things that are not good and to know the things that are good, knowledge of good and evil. Because knowledge is something else. Knowledge is a curse because we got the shortness of life. We actually were cursed when we ate from the tree of knowledge. So since then, knowledge has not been something that is always nice. Knowledge is power. Knowledge gives a person power in order to know the things that are there, in order to know the things that are not there, in order to have a different understanding of the world that is around you. Knowledge is beautiful because once you have knowledge, you can realize that life is meant to be known. And everything that you're doing it because you know life, because you have consciousness. So being conscious is to have knowledge. So if knowledge is a curse, then being conscious is a blessing, because being conscious is what life is, consciousness. And we had consciousness before we had knowledge. So consciousness is knowing beyond knowledge. Consciousness is wisdom, it's understanding, it is knowledge, it is meta knowledge, it is metaphysical, it is beyond all understanding. It doesn't really care. Like, consciousness is something that you have as communion with God. It's a common unity with the creator of all things, who gave you consciousness, and you ended up accumulating knowledge, but you already had consciousness. Consciousness means that you have all of the faculties available to you. Everything that you want to do is something that you're able to do. And the fact that you want to do it means that it's already yours, it's already done, because you're conscious of it. Now the thing is to get knowledge of it and to be better at it. So everything in life is just that. Everything is actually beautiful. Everything is created to be beauty, to be reflected on, and to be reflected on. That's interesting because everything in our consciousness is something that we think about. When we think, we have thoughts which translate into words. These words give us information, and through this whole process, sometimes we can get some refined understanding. We can get wisdom, we can get knowledge and understanding. So when we have this life, it's meant to be reflected on, because the first thing that happened is that God opened his eyes. So his eyes gave him light. He opened his eyes. Everything was asleep. Everything was asleep before God said, "Let there be light." Everything was in darkness. Everything was asleep. Now, since he opened his eyes, he's now conscious. He's now aware. He now has the awareness, the consciousness to say, "Let there be light," which is to give knowledge, right? Because sometimes we call knowledge light. Sometimes that's what we do. We say that this person is very bright because the person has knowledge. Bright, it's light. So the first thing was the brightness. It was so bright, it was like a big bang. After that we had life, we had consciousness, awareness, we had a soul. And then we had responsibilities because we have a soul. The soul is very important. The soul is the responsibility. The ability to respond is the soul. The ability to be alive. This is why we have a body. This body gives us the ability to interact, the ability to use these hands, this mouth, this body, this soul gives us the ability to create a camera. So everything is derived from the soul. Everything is derived from the light. Let there be light. In the African story, we say that the first person was called Mwezi, which is the moon. And the moon is a reflection of the sun. So the sun has light. But the sun is not light. Because we can find fire. We can find light in fire. We can find light in electricity. But the sun has light. The sun is not light. So light is the Father. The sun is the emission of light. The evidence of light is the sun. So we had the Father, the Son, and we had His Holy Spirit. So this Holy Spirit was actually in this horn, it seems, because this horn is actually broken from the moon. It's actually a part of the moon, because there's a leader in African history, or in African understanding, who actually our African leaders have always been really fascinated with the moon. There's a leader who once told his people to get the moon for him. They started stacking rocks, one on top of the other, one on top of the other, so that they could go to the moon and get it. This is reminiscent of the story of the Tower of Babel, that the people wanted to create a tower to go as high as they possibly could, but then they weren't able to fulfill that. That happened in I think it's a leader in the southern part of Zimbabwe. So this African leader actually had that idea, and they actually attempted to do it. But as the story with Nimrod goes, he's now seen as a Nimrod. And Nimrod is an idiot. He's now seen as an idiot because it seems like it's an impossible task. But what these ancients had was a different mind, because they had a different brightness, they had a different sunshine, they had a different light. They could see things in a very different way, because right now we're trying to go to the old way of doing things so that we can see what the future holds. The old way of doing things was very different. It was more in tune with life, more in tune with nature, more in tune with the consciousness of the universe. Everything was happening because of the consciousness of the universe. Because God created, like, let there be light, right? And part of those lights were the sun and the moon. This is not the light that is created in the let there be light statement. Let there be light is open your eyes. Open your eyes. After you open your eyes, you have heaven, you have earth, you have trees, right? After you open your eyes, you have animals. You have fish, you have birds, you have water. After you open your eyes, this is what you see every day. You create the world every day. So after this, you have people around you. Then the people around you give you rest. The people around you give you joy. This is the Sabbath. Always take the Sabbath. Always appreciate your people. Always count your blessings. This is the Sabbath. You have to have a day you do this. This is the Sabbath. Because you create the world every day. So you need a Sabbath every day. You need a Sabbath every week. You need a Sabbath every year. You need a Sabbath every decade. You need a Sabbath every 10 years, every 20 years, every 50 years. You need this. This is the cycle of the universe. When you open your eyes, you already have light because you have knowledge. Knowledge or consciousness. Consciousness is what you got. This consciousness is coupled with knowledge. Knowledge would be when Adam was naming the animals. Consciousness is Adam breathing. And as he was breathing, he already had all of the awareness of all of the things in the universe. This is how he could actually name animals that he's never seen before. So this is showing us that there is consciousness and there's knowledge. Consciousness is being able to create a poem when he saw Eve, because she was so beautiful. The first queen, the first king. The flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. How did he know what was happening? He saw it in a dream. He saw her when he opened his eyes. Because he created her. So our minds are this. Our minds are creating beauty, life, because our nature is good. This is what was happening. Adam and Eve were in the garden for such a long time. We don't even know how many eons they were in the garden for. But we know that they were there for a long time because time didn't exist. But then one day, as was inevitable, because God knows everything, right? So it was going to happen one day, I guess, because the tree was there, the serpent was there. But it happened one day. So it could have happened on the first day, which is not likely, because it was after Adam told her everything that he knows, that she actually knew that she's not supposed to approach the fruit. It was after that. So it was after a while. And then they ate it. And whatever happened is the world that we have today. The world of duality, of plurality, of life and death, of good and bad. But at one point, everything was just good, because everything is good. He saw everything he made and then it was good. And all life starts in that water. The African story, this Moetsi guy, and you know that the moon is forever linked with the sea. This is what gives the tides their power. It actually causes tides to rise. It causes waves in the ocean. It also causes waves in the water body, which is a person. A woman has these tides every end of the month because of the moon. So these are actually waves in her body. She actually has an actual wave. And the circulation of her essence, her blood, is actually affected by the moon. The same way that the earth, which is Mother Earth, is affected by the moon. It has actual waves, just like a woman. The moon, the woman. Earth, Mother Earth. So this is the reflection of man. Because the woman came out of the man, or the woman came for the man. Either way, this is reflective and magnetic. So either way, one is reflective and one is magnetic. This is the world that we live in. Before, they were just in balance. They were at par. They were a pair. This is before the fall. This is something that people don't actually get, that before they were equal. This is why the snake told Eve, because they were equally different, right? Equally different. But then this is why they were together the whole time. When the snake was talking to Eve, they were equally there, equally listening. And then she ate and he reacted by eating, equally in the same way. But since she is the reflection of him, he did it. Since she is a reflection of him, God came and said, Adam, what did you do? Because he caused his reflection to do that. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, I shall call you woman. Man and the womb man. One of them just had the womb. One of them had the ability to create a different reflection of the same reflection, of the first reflection. A different version of Adam was created through this one. So this woman was like a cycle or a circle. She was the cipher, deciphered by the serpent, deciphered. So the serpent deciphered her because he knew that if he were to create anything that would affect the whole of humanity, he has to break the cycle. He has to break the cycle of this woman, of this womb man. Womb man. Every man comes from a womb. So this is why God is like, your seed and her seed are gonna be at loggerheads. Even though Adam is to blame, even though she's the one who ate, Adam is to blame for the sin, but her seed is going to be the one responsible. Us, we are the seed. The seed is in the womb. So it was all about the matrix. It was all about the womb. The womb that took us to a tomb. That is the duality. Life, death, womb, tomb. Womb, tomb. But you know, just like being born is not to be feared, dying is not to be feared. Life and death, the same thing dealt by the same master. What matters is what happens in between this century. Everyone has that. So it's like a dollar that you have to spend, right? That's why time is money. It's a century, a cent, a buck. Time is money. So everything you're doing is you living. This is what life is. Everything you're doing right now, this is you living. So make it worth it, because when you wake up, you're gonna separate light from dark. The darkness from your closed eyelids is gonna be separated from the brightness of the morning light. Separated light from dark, right there. You just did it. This is why you're a reflection of God in His image. You just did it. Then the next thing, you're gonna go to the water, and then you're gonna call forth water. You're gonna call forth all of the trees. You're gonna call forth all of the trees and wear your clothes. This is what you're doing every day. This is the cycle of life. Then you're gonna see people, right? And then when you see people, then you're gonna be doing the things that you love, because after that, everything is in communion. This is why let us create man in our own image. Let us create man in this type of community. The community was Adam and Eve. That was their common union, that they were both king and queen. So that was their community. That was their common union, their rulership. So this is why kings hang out with kings, because that's where you find rest in your heart. That's where you find rest with your ideas. That's why kings hang out with kings. Queens hang out with kings. Queens hang out with queens. Because this is where you find your rest. This is the community. Because God is something that you share with the world. This is your life experience. How you express yourself within the community around you. How you express yourself with the truth in mind. This is it. This is how you live. This is life. And why wisdom is so important is because of how you articulate. Because wisdom is all about words. It's how you articulate what you deem to be to be righteous, what you deem to be true. So wisdom gives you freedom, gives you wealth, gives you plenty, gives you a cup full of wine. You know, all of these things. Gives you a woman or it gives you a man, depending on whether you're a male or a female. You know, this is the product of it. So it's to live well, it's to experience life, and to do the best you can, like at all times. So this is consciousness, being aware that you're alive, and living your life with awareness, living your life knowing that your decisions matter. Your decisions do matter. Your essence is good. Your essence is greatness. This is who you are essentially. You're still a king in the garden. You're still a queen in the garden. This is who you are essentially. Essentially, that is the essence of it. So you have to know this and live accordingly. And how you do your things is going to be how you express your life in community with the whole world, because all is God. That's why everyone's created in His image. So how you commune with the world around you is how you communicate, and is how you have commonality with people. There's natural law, right? Like the sun will be up, the moon will be up. That's natural. But there's also common law. But nowadays we have what we call civil law, which is a corruption of common law. Common law is communion. That is it. We're supposed to live in natural law and common law. We have a male and a female. We have Adam and we have his reflection. Commonality. She, the Eve, the womb, was going to create the commonality, communion. Because once they had sex, the womb, which is what was attacked, was going to be the one that has the seed to create a different common union. Different community, different communion. Because people, some couples are only together because they have a kid together, right? Because this creates communion. You make love. This is why God is love. God is actually love. And you make actual love and have an actual person so that you can have God. And God is that community. God is that communion that you have with the person, with you, with the kid. That's why 1 + 1 is 1, 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 3. So 2 is Adam and Eve, right? 1 is God, 2 is man, 3 is God, 3 in 1. So this is the community. So yeah, so just be conscious. Stay knowing and stay strong. You have what it takes, and you can do anything that you set your mind to. You just have to also apply your heart to it, and that's the principle. Principles are for princes. If you're a prince, it means that you live on principle. That's it. Your principles make you a prince or a princess because you're the son of the king. So it's all about your principles. The principle is the virtue. When that woman touched Jesus' garments, he said, "Who touched me?" Because virtue came out of me. Some principalities came out of me. She was using the principle of faith. Okay? And there are 9 fruit that have 9 different principles. Joy, love, happiness, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. All of these are principles. All of these are for kings. So be fruitful and multiply. This is the only commandment we're given in the garden. Be fruitful and multiply. And we have the 9 fruit of the Spirit. The 9 fruit of the Spirit. Be fruitful and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply. You create the world every day, and you're told to be fruitful every day. Every day. So, be fruitful and multiply.